Hey, now this is Mr. Peaceful Poet. The name of this video will be the 20 and Back program. You may have heard about it. It was in a science fiction movie, I understand. I don't believe I've watched that movie, but I've heard about it. I don't know if the idea came from the science fiction movie or the science fiction movie got the idea from real life. It's a crazy idea, and the only reason I'm considering it is because something very strange happened to me when I was very little. And so I'm considering it. It's an idea. If any of you have been following me for some time, then you know that I remember before I was born. I've told this story many times. But if you're new here, well, we'll tell the story again. So if you heard it before, I'm sorry, you're going to hear it again. But the thing is, I'm not so sure now if it's a memory of before I was born or if it was something else, if it was the 20 and Back program. So I'm going to just tell you the memory. Um, where I was in a place where there were many of us. First of all, let me just start out by saying I am not a star seed. Okay. I just recently discovered this because I've heard the term many times, like I'm sure you have, star seed, all the star seeds. There's videos out there for all the star seeds and star seeds this and star seeds that. But I'm not a star seed. A star seed is someone who comes from another planet and their soul comes from another planet and comes to the earth plane into a human being. So there are human beings with souls from another planet. These are star seeds. I am a soul from planet Earth. I'm just a normal human being on planet Earth. So, but I remember before I was born something that I wasn't supposed to remember. But maybe it wasn't a memory before I was born. Maybe it was the 20 back program. So let me explain and you can decide because I haven't decided. I really don't know. I really don't know. It's a pretty crazy idea. All I know is something strange happened to me when I was very young. So before I was born, I remember being in a place with several others, and we all loved each other, and the love was powerful, very powerful. It was like feeling safe and secure with somebody. That was how powerful it was. And then I found myself before this huge hole. And this hole was probably about 100 yards by 100 yards. That's how big it was. It was huge. And it was more like not just a hole, but it was more like a window. Just a huge window, looked like a hole. And the window would look down on Earth. And what I saw down there was awful things, terrible things that were so terrible that I can't remember them. All I know is they were just really bad stuff that I can't remember what I saw, except for the very last thing. And the last thing is I saw an atomic explosion bellowing up uh, from the planet, and that's the last thing I remember. And then a man came to me, and when I was very little, I used to believe it was Jesus. But now that I'm older, well, I don't know now who it was. There is an alien race who have beards and mustaches. So it could have been that. Could have been that race of aliens. But this man had a beard mustache. And he comes to me. And as he comes to me, I know why he's coming, but it just hasn't dawned on me. It's like a feeling inside your head. You kind of know why, but you don't really, it doesn't quite dawn on you, if you know what I mean. And so he comes to me and he says, it's time to go. And I just about lost it. Just tears just started flowing down from my eyes, and my knees began to collapse. I almost fell to the ground. And then he puts his hand on my shoulder and says, "But it'll be okay." And that's the memory. That's the memory I've had my whole life. Now, could that be before I was born? Maybe. But maybe, and here's the thing. Here's the thing. If you search, I remember before I was born, you'll find other people like me, I think a lot of us, a few of us, maybe three or four, who remember before they were born like I do. But their story is a little bit different than mine. The way they tell it, they agreed to come here. They chose to come here. It was their idea to come here, whatever, they volunteered. But that's not my story. I didn't want to come here. So so mine's a little bit different. And maybe it's a little bit different because I'm not a star seed, because the star seeds chose to come here. And maybe it's a little different from mine because it's not a memory before I was born. It's a memory of the 20 and back program. That's where it comes from, which you're not supposed to remember either. But for some reason, I do. I've hit my head several times in my lifetime, and when I was very little. So maybe maybe it would jog my memory. I don't know. It's just an idea. But the 20 back program, what it is uh, there were two alien races, or I won't say two alien races. I'll say one alien race and one group of aliens um, contacted President Eisenhower, and he had a choice to make. He chose he one group of aliens were the um, Orions, or they were from the Orion group. They're aliens. I'm not the Greys. I'll just call them the Greys. Uh, and from Orion, the Orion Greys. Yeah, they call them the Orion Greys. So yeah, there we go. But they've been, I guess, messing around with us on Earth here for, I don't know, maybe 100, 200 years, maybe. They've been messing with us. They made friends with Hitler. Hitler, well, there's another, I'm not going to get into that, but they made friends with Hitler. And then because Hitler lost, they came to us. They came to President Eisenhower. And what they wanted, what both the group of aliens and the group of aliens and the alien, what the Orion Greys wanted, I'll just say, they didn't want any more nuclear explosions. This upset a lot of. Normally, the aliens that mess with this weren't supposed to be messing with this, but they did. And the Galactic Federation, the organization of other worlds, they had an agreement. Oh shoot, I can't remember what it's called now. Anyways, they weren't supposed to mess with us. They weren't supposed to mess with us. This was the agreement from the Galactic Federation. However, the Greys, the Orion Greys, uh, broke that agreement, and they've been messing with this for about 100 years, whatever. They've been messing with. They made an agreement with Hitler, and Hitler lost, and so then they went to Eisenhower. So the agreement is in other star systems there were wars going on that they were fighting in, and what they used to fight in these wars were um, humanoids. Humanoids. I don't know. That's not quite the word. They were. mm, Shoot, I can't. It's. I have memory issues. Okay, and names are one of the things that I struggle with. But anyways, they created these creatures that look like people. Okay, there's a name for them, but I can't remember what it is off the top of my head. They created these beings that look like humans, but the only problem was is they couldn't operate without a conscience. They had to have a conscience in order to operate. So they made an agreement with Eisenhower to to steal consciences from the Earth. They can transport into these other beings, and they can fight their wars. And they're only allowed to take so many. And that was one agreement. The other agreement was they take some of us and use us for DNA or DNA testing to see they they had messed with their DNA to such an extent that they were going extinct. They they had raised they could live for like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, and never die, but they couldn't reproduce. So their population was slowly disappearing. So in order to fix that, they needed our DNA. So so one of the two agreements was they needed people's consciences and they also needed our DNA. So they were allowed to capture so many children, and I don't know what the agreed amount was. And they had to have those children back here in 20 years. That's why it's called the 20 and back program. And we weren't supposed to know about it. And the way they did it is they would capture a small child and it would go to a training camp where they would train them to work with these beings that they created with their conscience to go into battle for them on other planets. And also, they would need our DNA. I don't know if all were captured well, the adults, I'm sure, were captured for their DNA, but the children were captured for what was called the 20 and back program. And then after you served your 20 years, which included training and battle or whatever it was you were into, then you're returned to Earth. And the way they did this is they took you back in time and then they put you into a med bed and they regressed you back 20 years. Because if you learn about med beds, you'll learn that they can regress you 20 years, but they can't regress you more than that. They can only take you back 20 years. So they would take a 5-year-old child, they would train him, take his conscience, put it in this being. They'd fight for, I don't know, 15 years maybe, because I don't know how long the training took actually. And then they would bring him back. And they bring him back in time. They go back in time, and then they would regress the person back in a med bed, 20 years, and put them right back where they come, and erase their memory, and the person wouldn't know it. See? Well, um, we didn't exactly keep our agreement, and they didn't exactly keep their agreement. We continued with testing, nuclear testing, and they took more than whatever the allotted amount was, and they were kind of sloppy with it too. Some of us did remember, and here's the kicker. See, this is when I was about 4 or 5 years old. I found myself in the middle of town in my underwear, and I had no idea how I got there. And the police picked me up and took me back home. And of course, I've asked my mom about this, and of course, my mom always says I used to disappear all the time when I was a kid, and I can remember running away once, but I don't remember about all times. And of course, I've asked her about this, but her memory's not too good now because she's had a couple of strokes, so her memory's not so good anymore. But my sister did remember that when the police brought me back, she said, "Oh, he's in his bed," and she looked, and I wasn't there, and she was shocked. How did I? Now I'm about 4 or 5 years old, something like that, and I was very tiny. Yeah, right now I'm about 5'3", so I'm not a real big person. So about 4 or 5 years old, I was very small. We lived in a trailer, and I remember I had troubles going outside. I had troubles reaching the doorknob, and of course, there were steps. As soon as you open that door, there were steps there that you had to climb down. And I doubt that I was able to do that in my sleep. I really do. That would be a difficult task for me in my sleep. And then to walk. Oh yeah, I think I skipped a part. Yeah. The police picked me up, took me home, and it was decided that I slept walk. See, that's what they decided. I slept walk into the middle of town. That's what they decided. I mean, what else could they decide? I mean, how else did I get there, right? So that's what they decided on. The idea though is completely ridiculous. I mean, how could I get out of that trailer and down those steps, much less all the way down middle of town? It was a small town, granted, but still, that's a long ways for a 4 or 5 year old. But that's kind of strange. And no explanation whatsoever, except that they think that I sleptwalk. I've never sleptwalk ever again, ever again. And right now, I'm 67 years old. And by the way, I know some of you are going to say, oh man, he looks pretty young for being 67. I just recently discovered something, and I'm going to share this with you. Vitamin C. Vitamin C keeps you young looking. They just recently discovered this. And I've been taking vitamin C supplements for the last 14 years. So maybe that's it. I just thought I'd share that with you. Vitamin C. If you want to stay young, take that vitamin C. And also, for those of you who follow me, you might notice I got a haircut. I cut my hair. I did it myself and shaved. My wife doesn't like it. She can't wait for it to grow back, but it was kind of getting in my way. I'd share that too. But anyways, that's the 20 back program. And that's the weird thing that happened to me when I was a child. And that's the memory that I have. So I don't know if that's what happened to me, if I was a part of the 20 back program or not. But I do know something weird happened to me when I was very little. And what other explanation could I have other I know I didn't sleepwalk. That's crazy. And other weird things happened to me when I was a child as well. I was psychic. I was psychic. I remember watching my mother would watch game shows on TV, and I remember watching the TV, and I remember knowing all the answers. I knew all the answers. And when the phone would ring, I would know who was calling. I had a perfect sense of direction. Um, but by the time I reached kindergarten, I lost all of that. All of that went away. And they say that people who have been taken by the aliens and returned did develop psychic abilities. So that could be another explanation for that as well. I do think I do have a considerable amount of intuition. I consider myself to be, um, man, what's it called now? Um, an empath. I do consider myself to be an empath. Um, I have I can watch the news and I can tell when I'm being lied to. Now, I don't always know when I'm being told the truth, but I do know when I'm being lied to. I always do know when I'm being lied to. Now, sometimes I can be deceived because sometimes the person or the organization, whatever, who put this forth, who's lying to us, they don't mean to. To them, it's the truth. They think they're telling you the truth. So in that case, I might be deceived. I might be tricked because I'll pick up on that. But if they know they're lying and they're lying to us, I know it. I'll pick up on it right away. And I do think I do have this uncanny ability. And this is why I'm constantly checking the news and I'm sharing news articles with everybody on Facebook and X and things like that, because I know that these things are truthful or close to the truth, or there's important truth contained in these videos or news articles. And that's why I share them. And yeah, because I do like, I'll give you, for instance, you remember that bombing in Boston that was blamed on those Muslim kids? Supposedly they made a bomb in a backpack that was filled with nails and they left it somewhere and set it off. And these two Muslim kids from college it was blamed on them. Well, I knew that was a lie. I knew for a fact that that was a lie. And I still believe that it was a lie. And unfortunately, both those kids were killed. One, I think, was put to death. The other one was, I think, shot and died. But that was all a lie. They were set up. It was all set up. And I know that. Some things I know. Sometimes I don't know right away, though. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time, but I always do figure it out. I always do. So I do think I still have a little bit of my psychic abilities left in me, just a little bit left, but not like when I was very little. It was uncanny, unbelievable, but unfortunately, that's all gone. But that's it, I guess. I wanted to, it's real short and sweet. If you have any ideas, please share them. Love and peace. Bye.